Time now for another update on the snowstorm and the snow clearing response. I'm Mark Rogstad, Manager of Media Relations for the City of Saskatoon. And today, again, we're joined by Terry Schmidt, who is the General Manager of the Transportation and Construction Department. And also with us today, we have Jeff Jorgensen, our City Manager. So we will turn it over to Terry Schmidt, who will provide some more details about the efforts overnight and anything else that's happening today, and then some remarks from Mr. Jorgensen. And following that, we'll open it up to the journalists to ask any questions they might have. And as usual, I'll ask them to text the number that they have to do that. And I will ensure that our operator knows whose microphone to turn on. All right, without any further delay, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mark, and good morning, everybody. Thank you again for taking the time to join us today. As Mark mentioned, my name is Terry Schmidt, and I'm the General Manager of Transportation and Construction for the City of Saskatoon. Yesterday and overnight, good progress was made on improving mobility on residential streets, and we continue to bring in additional contractors for this work. The residential clearance schedule is available at saskatoon.ca/snow. I do want to remind everyone this is a tentative schedule and subject to change and very fluid based on weather conditions and contractor availability and production. In some cases, we've been able to advance work to some neighborhoods as more contractors are brought on and as production increases. It changes multiple times a day as we are updated on contractor progress, so please check it frequently. There are a few considerations on how the schedule is determined, including coordination with services like garbage and recycling collection, the degree of impact the storms had on the neighborhood, the street volumes in the neighborhood on the main streets. And some of the largest impacts that have been identified are neighborhoods at the edges of the city where the strong winds resulted in drifting. Some factors like snowfall or coordination with other services may impact this planned schedule, such as the snow and wind we are seeing today, which is causing drifting. The schedule for residential snow clearing was developed so that it didn't overlap with collection schedules. However, as work is fluid and changing quickly, there may be some instances where this is not the case. And in those situations, crews will move bins onto driveways and then move them back onto the street. Our first priority is to improve mobility to as many residents as quickly as possible. This will mean there may be impacts on parking availability in neighborhoods when the snow is being cleared. Residents are not required to move their vehicle, but if able, crews will really appreciate the additional space to complete the work and the ability to clear streets more fully. Piles of snow left on streets after snow clearing will vary by neighborhood. This is because it's dependent on the street's width and the amount of accumulated snow on the streets. We'll endeavor to use alternate storage areas and minimize the piles, but there may be ridges left adjacent to cars, and residents will be responsible for any removal adjacent to their vehicles that may be needed to get out of the parking spot. Please reach out to friends and neighbors if you cannot clear these on your own. We ask that residents do not move snow back onto the cleared streets. After basic mobility has been restored, snow crews will return to streets for the final cleanup work. Nighttime work may also cause some noise disturbances, and we apologize for that, but working through the night will significantly reduce the schedule to complete the work. With the huge accumulations of snow, the clearing operations are resulting in some snow piles. And for your safety and the safety of your children, we ask that no one climbs in the snow piles or builds tunnels through them, as the weight of the snow could be very dangerous. And we know that all neighborhoods across the city have been impacted by this snowstorm, and we're working to get to all neighborhoods as quickly as possible. We're working simultaneously throughout the entire city, touching on all the corners of the city, focusing on beginning with streets worst affected and clearing residential streets in all neighborhoods in a sequence where the streets carrying the most traffic or strategically located are addressed first. The streets worst affected and therefore prioritized, as I mentioned, were those near the edge of the city because they were most susceptible to blowing snow, creating massive snow drifts. Our crews will be going to the back lanes as well. The initial focus will be on those back lanes with garbage pickup. As of this morning, basic mobility has been restored on 15 neighborhoods throughout the city. Clearing is underway in an additional 6 neighborhoods, and today or tonight, work is scheduled to start on an additional 8 neighborhoods. By tonight, basic mobility will have been restored or work underway in a total of 29, or nearly 45% of the residential neighborhoods on the schedule. Our schedule has work starting at all neighborhoods on or before November 20th. We also continue working on clearing snow in the school zones, and will do as much as possible before Monday, though windrows or snow ridges may remain in the parking lanes. The removal of these windrows is underway at all 100+ school zones across the city, and in the meantime, we ask that everyone exercise extreme caution while navigating school zones when snow ridges may impact pickup or drop-off, as well as sightlines. Much work has been completed, but we know much work still needs to be done. We're throwing everything we've got at this to help you and your family get where you need to go safely. We're working around the clock, day and night, and we've hired local contractors to help us get to you faster. There are nearly 300 crew members with plows, sanders, graders, tandem loaders, and trucks working day and night. Once again, thank you for helping your neighbors, remaining patient during the citywide snow cleanup, and for staying safe around the snow removal equipment on our streets. With the snow and winds we're experiencing today, drifting is occurring on some of the priority streets, especially those with high ridges and the medians and sides of the streets, especially they are susceptible to the drifting. Please remember that road conditions are still considered hazardous due to the snow accumulation and the drifting that is occurring and the layer of ice underneath the snow. Our crews are sanding and salting to treat ice as snow is being cleared from the roads. And Saskatoon Transit is also operating on regular schedules with a few minor disruptions on several routes. We encourage you to use Transit app, Google Transit on desktop, or visit saskatoon.ca to check on the transit schedule, routes, and any service alerts when planning your trip. You may also visit saskatoon.ca/snow for information about the residential clearing schedule. And as I mentioned earlier, it is very fluid and changing quickly, so please check it frequently. Links to our news releases, which provide valuable information on our progress and other service updates, news conferences on our YouTube channel, and just general information on our priority road system, snow clearing program, and some of the questions you may have. So again, thank you for your time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff Jorgensen, our city manager.
Great. Thank you very much, Terry, to you and everybody on your team for all of your hard work. In my inspections of the city, as I've said before, we see significant progress every day. And it is very inspiring to see all of those 300 pieces of equipment and the 300 people working those long shifts away from their friends and family. And those, of course, are many of those people are your neighbors. Those are Saskatoon citizens who are doing everything they can to get get this winter storm cleaned up. So our heartfelt thanks to everybody involved. And to all citizens, again, like Terry mentioned, thank you for your patience and understanding as we work through the cleanup of the storm. It's a different, anybody that's driving around sees it's a different city. The windrows downtown, for example, there's some that are 20 feet wide in the middle of the street. The piles of snow actually 20 feet wide. This is the significant volumes of snow that we're dealing with, and it's the extra caution and care that we're seeing drivers take is much appreciated as we look after each other. We are starting to actually get some concerns and complaints brought forward from people who are wondering why we would clear the residential streets. And it is an age-old question in Saskatoon. There's often people who think the city should, and some people think the city shouldn't clear residential streets. And people who think the city shouldn't often state that once the street is packed in, they would far rather deal with just that snowpack than piles of snow or ridges of snow along the edge. And that's very understandable. The reason we are pushing through the city as aggressively as we are two reasons, of course. Some vehicles are struggling to navigate streets with extensive snow, so we need to restore that driving surface for all vehicles. But also the risk of ruts, of significant ruts, is really high when get this level of snowpack. When temperatures are cold, the snow tends to pack levelly across the road and actually creates a good driving surface. But as soon as it warms up, and a lot of people saw this even over the last few days, some of the roads are starting to pack in quite nicely. But as soon as it warms up, the snow expands, the ruts come back, and what we risk is actually, if we don't deal with the snowpack on the streets, what can happen is it ruts, it gets very warm, we get the ruts back, and then if it goes back into a very cold situation, boy, those ruts are a lot more treacherous than they are even now. And anybody that lived in Saskatoon in 2013 would remember a situation where a significant snowpack in the spring, we got significant warm temperatures, the ruts formed, and then we got about 2 weeks of severe cold. And the equipment was, instead of pushing snow around, it was actually, almost like we were fighting concrete at the city. That ice was so hard, and it made it very difficult for vehicles, especially smaller vehicles, to navigate residential streets. So the actions we're taking now are going to provide, we feel, an immediate benefit to residents, but also this action is required to minimize the chance that we get us into a situation where there is significant ice running.